Step out onto Knez Mihailova, the heartbeat of Belgrade, and you feel a strange friction in the air. To your left, a gleaming European luxury brand store glows, catering to the new money. To your right, a cluster of arrivals from the east settle into an expensive cafe, paying for espressos with the kind of capital that makes local price tags irrelevant. High above, the hum of a drone, likely surveying land for a highway financed by foreign credit, serves as a constant reminder that this city is being built for the future, whether the people living here are ready for it or not. But here is the secret beneath the pavement. This soil sits on one of the most contested, volatile lithium deposits on the planet. This is a state operating on a razor's edge, a complex, high-stakes poker game where the chips are the nation's future and the players are the world's greatest superpowers. If you believe the official narrative, the economy is entering a golden era of growth, with record-breaking infrastructure projects and a GDP that seems to only point upward. But walk into a local tavern, away from the headlines, and the story shifts. You hear about a population that is evaporating, a cost of living that makes survival feel like a luxury, and a youth unemployment rate that drives the best minds to the nearest airport with a one-way ticket. So, who is telling the truth? The unsettling reality is that they both are. This isn't a story of political sides. It's a story of raw, unvarnished economics. If you find yourself questioning what's really happening behind the polished surface of modern development, and you want to keep digging into the mechanics of the world around us, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep this research independent and brings more stories like this to the screen. Consider the economic model that has been in play for years, the grand subsidy hustle. Picture a corporate boardroom in Stuttgart or Shenzhen. These global conglomerates have a persistent dilemma. They need to manufacture goods at rock-bottom costs to satisfy the hunger of the European Union market. But they are allergic to the EU's strict labor laws, the powerful unions, and the heavy tax burdens. They scan the map and find a gap in the center of the Balkans. It isn't in the European Union, yet it's close enough to supply it. The strategy they employ is essentially a form of state-sponsored corporate welfare. The government offers free land, pays for the roads and utilities, and hands out tax holidays that last for years. It gets even more audacious. For every local worker hired, the state essentially pays a massive chunk of their salary through direct, non-refundable subsidies. It is an economic sugar daddy arrangement, where a developing nation drains its own resources to keep Fortune 500 companies comfortable. The logic, at least on the surface, was simple. After the devastation of previous decades, the country was on life support. Jobs were the only currency that mattered. And if you look at the raw statistics, record foreign direct investment, plummeting unemployment, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, the strategy worked. But when you look at the math, you see the illusion. The state is taxing its own citizens to give money to foreign giants, who then pay the citizens with that same money. The real wealth doesn't stay. It flows out as corporate profit. Meanwhile, the state is left with depleted budgets and a workforce trapped in low-value manual labor, while towns nearby suffer from chronic issues, like the inability to even provide safe drinking water to residents, a staggering indictment of priorities. But the exploitation of cheap labor is only the opening act. The real tension lies beneath the earth, in the white gold that nearly ignited a revolution. In the Jadar Valley, the land has been shaped by generations of farming, but the soil hides jadarite, a mineral with a chemical composition so unique it's been compared to the fictional kryptonite. It is a massive deposit of lithium, the holy grail of the electric vehicle battery industry. For the European Union, desperate to break its reliance on Chinese supply chains, this was the solution. For the government, it was the ticket to the big leagues. But the economics of extraction in a developing nation are rarely in the nation's favor. The mining giant involved would reap the lion's share of the billions in revenue, while the local state would collect a royalty rate that is historically microscopic, often hovering around 5%. In exchange, the country risks the toxification of its water table with the sulfuric acid required to process the ore. The people recognized the transaction for what it was, a sacrifice of their land for a pittance. The resistance wasn't just protest. It was a blockade that stalled international logistics, a rare moment where civilian pressure forced a multi-billion-dollar corporate giant to blink and pause their plans. Yet, this victory only left planners sweating, because if you can't sell the lithium and you can't rely on subsidized factories, how do you sustain the growth narrative? The answer, they hoped, was the tech sector, a digital island in an analog country. If you walk into a trendy coffee shop in the capital, you are in a different world. The median net salary might be modest, but the tech bubble operates on a completely different frequency. The war in the East triggered a massive migration of tech talent, creating a surge in the economy. The government offered tax incentives, and the sector exploded, becoming a major exporter. It looks like a success story on a spreadsheet, but it has created two isolated realities. The influx of high-paid professionals, both domestic and foreign, has triggered a localized surge in the cost of living. Rents in the capital have skyrocketed, pushing out the very people who run the city, the teachers, the nurses, the service workers. The wealth isn't trickling down. It is staying within a walled digital garden. Moreover, this tech boom is built on a body leasing model where the local sector isn't owning the intellectual property, but simply renting out their developers' time to foreign corporations. If the tax breaks shift or the global market wavers, this entire sector could pack its laptops and move to a more favorable climate in a matter of weeks. It is a billion-dollar penthouse built on a shifting foundation. While the tech sector creates a mirage of prosperity, the true survival mechanism for the average household is the silent engine of the diaspora. If you travel through the rural regions, you will see a surreal landscape. Massive, ornate four-story mansions, complete with marble statues and iron gates, all sitting silent and locked tight. These are monuments to the silent exodus. The diaspora sends back billions of euros annually, a sum that accounts for a massive chunk of the GDP. This isn't government policy. This is a social safety net funded by the millions who left. It is a nurse working double shifts in Munich, sending money to her parents in Kragujevac so they can afford medicine and heat. It is a brutal trade-off. The country stabilizes its currency by exporting its most valuable resource, its youth. This demographic time bomb is ticking in plain sight. The population is aging rapidly, and the ratio of workers to retirees is hitting a breaking point that is mathematically unsustainable without massive borrowing. So, who is building the shiny new stadiums and the high-speed trains? Where is the capital for the leap into the future coming from? It's arriving from the east through the Belt and Road Initiative. The government avoids the red tape and scrutiny of Western institutions by turning to Chinese loans. These agreements are often opaque, bypassing public procurement laws. But this comes with a catch. The money borrowed often doesn't enter the local economy. It goes directly to Chinese state-owned enterprises to pay for Chinese labor, machinery, and materials. The country gets the highway, but it also gets the debt and the obligation to repay it with interest. It is a masterclass in financial engineering that keeps the construction machines running, but at a cost that is locked into state contracts classified as secrets. This vulnerability is compounded by the energy sector. For years, the state traded its energy sovereignty for geopolitical shielding, selling control of its infrastructure to foreign energy giants at a fraction of its true value. This created a dependency that became a trap. When the geopolitical winds shifted, the country found itself on the brink of paralysis, with fuel supplies threatened by international sanctions. They have been forced into a humiliating scramble to reacquire their own energy infrastructure, surviving on temporary month-to-month permissions to keep the trucks running and the homes heated. It is a stark reminder that when you sell your sovereignty for a quick win, the bill eventually comes due, and it is usually payable in national security. Layered over all of this is the party state, a system where political loyalty is the currency of advancement. In a country where the ruling party's membership is a significant percentage of the population, employment is often tied to the card in your wallet rather than the degree on your wall. This partocracy funnels public contracts to a select group of construction cartels, bypassing competitive bidding. It explains why real estate is booming. Concrete is the safest way to launder the proceeds of these inflated public projects. But this system has a breaking point. When you prioritize loyalty over engineering and safety, reality eventually intervenes. The catastrophic collapse of a railway canopy, which crushed citizens in the heart of the city, was the moment the public realized that the corruption wasn't just a political issue, it was a physical threat. It was a failure of the state that could not be masked by any amount of media spin. Finally, there is the tragedy of the breadbasket. The farming sector, once the backbone of the region, is being starved. Domestic farmers are expected to compete with heavily subsidized European Union agriculture while paying high prices for fuel and receiving little support. The state, eager to chase the flashy metrics of tech and industry, has effectively treated the agricultural heartland as an ATM to be squeezed. Droughts and mismanagement have forced families off their land, which is then consolidated by large agribusiness conglomerates. The fields of the north remain green, but the wealth they generate is increasingly shipped elsewhere. So, here we are. Is this a golden age or a house of cards? If you look at the nominal numbers, the skylines, and the speed of the new trains, you see a country that has played an incredibly difficult hand with ruthless Machiavellian skill. They have leveraged their geography to extract value from the east and the west simultaneously. But beneath the polish, the system is fragile. It is an economy where the most reliable export is the next generation, where growth is fueled by debt, and where the infrastructure of the future is built on the instability of the present. It is a high-wire act where the tightrope is fraying. The demographic decline and the reliance on foreign capital mean that this leap into the future might just be a high-speed ride toward a very cold winter. The country has sold its equity to everyone, and in doing so, it has slowly lost control of the building. If this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of a nation's survival struck a chord, and you value this kind of objective, no-nonsense analysis, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support is the only thing that keeps this kind of research going. Let us know in the comments. Do you think this high-wire balancing act is the only way for a smaller nation to survive in this globalized landscape, or is the foundation destined to collapse? Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.